My dear students, in this video we are continuing with history portions, lesson 10, India's struggle for freedom. And in the introduction part, we can see that what are the important changes that have occurred in the period of the British colonial rule or at the time of British period. First changes, the colonial rule brought India under uniform laws and a unified administration. That is the first and important change. What is that? British colonial rule brought India under uniform laws and a unified administration. The British established railways, telegraph lines, and new roads and canals. Naturally, this improved communication among Indians. And Indians who received Western education and they could communicate with one another in English, and they took a keen interest in India's past and used to press to spread feeling of cultural pride, unity among the people, and they also become increasingly aware and critical of British economic exploitation, repression and racial discrimination. These are the important changes that occur in the period of British rule. What are they? British rule or colonial rule brought India under a uniform laws and unified administration, and they introduced railway, telegraph lines, new road, canals, etc., and it improved communication. And many Indians, they got Western education and they could communicate with one another in English. And next we can see that a rise of political associations. What are the political association? You have already read earlier in this book that British policies in India caused several revolts among various sections of the people, such as landed chiefs, peasants, and tribals. In the second half of the 19th century, the educated Indians grew dissatisfied with certain British policies and attitudes. The Britishers, they introduced many new policies. The Indians, the educated Indians as well as the people, the common people, they were not satisfied with the British policies and attitudes. First one, we are going to learn about Lord Lytton's policies. Some of the policies adopted during Lord Lytton's tenure as Viceroy, Lytton increased taxes in India to meet useless military expenses. Lytton increased taxes in India to meet useless military expenses. And in 1877, the maximum age for appearing in the ICS examination was lowered from 21 to 19. And it impossible for Indians to enter the service. And in 1878, Lytton passed the Arms Act to deny Indians the right to possess weapon. Okay. And he also raised the duties on Indians' cotton goods, thereby stifling the Indian textile industry. First he increased taxes in India for what? To meet military expenses, and in 1877 he maximum age for appearing the examination of ICS was lowered from 21 to 19, and in 1878 Lytton passed the Arms Act, and it deny the Indians the right to possess weapons. Okay, and early political association. Here we can see that the early political associations. Around the 1850s, educated Indians started forming political associations to voice their discontent and to demand greater participation of Indians in administration. In 1850s, the educated Indian, they formed political associations for what? For showing discontent and to demand greater participation of Indians in the administration. And in 1860, Dadabhai Navroji helped start the East India Association in England to create public opinion in favor of India, and he was elected to the British Parliament. And he wrote the book Poverty and British Rule in India. In 1860, Dadabhai Nauroji start the East India Association in England for what? For create public opinion in favor of India, and he wrote a book Poverty and British Rule in India. Okay. And next we can see another controversial bill, that is Ilbert Bill. Viceroy Lord Ripon, who succeeded Lord Lytton, introduced the Ilbert Bill. What is that bill? The bill permitted Indian judges to try European in district level courts, and the Europeans, they opposed this bill. What was Ilbert Bill? The bill give permission Indian judges to try Europeans. So the Europeans, they strongly opposed the bill, and thus clearly showing their racial arrogance. And next we can see that the birth of the Indian National Congress. A.O. Hume, he was a retired civil servant, and he invited Education Indian to form an all India organization to represent the Indian people, and it led the formation of Indian National Congress. And the first session of India Congress, it held in Bombay on 28 December 1885, and this session was presided over by Bhumesh Chandra Banerjee and was attended by 72 delegates. And the Congress led India's freedom movement, also called the National Movement, from 1885 to 1945. And this movement can be divided into four main phases: the moderate phase, extreme phase, Gandhian phase, and the final phase. Okay. Who is the founder of this Indian National Congress? A.O. Hume, a retired civil servant. He invited Education India to form All India organization to represent the Indian people, and this led the formation of Indian National Congress, and the Congress led India's freedom movement. The Congress led India's freedom movement, and it also called the national movement. The freedom movement, we can divide it into four main phases: moderate phase, extreme phase, Gandhian phase, and the final phase. These are the important things. Up to here, all of you read. If you have any doubt about any point, you can ask through the comments. Okay, thank you.